Well, I wanted to follow up with the Israeli-Palestinian question because a lot of the debate that seems to get pushed under the carpet are freedom of religion issues. And we all stand up and cheer when people, when we speak out against the violence, but we don't often allow people to just have a voice when they just want to express their own personal feelings about something. So you can acknowledge, but how do you allow people to express themselves without that kind of vicious backlash when it's not something you agree with? And while the Palestinian-Israeli one is very divisive, I think another religious problem we have is with when you have the political correctness that arises around, religion doesn't really have a place in modern society, and how dare you have these opinions about things like gender or the importance of the family.
Thank you. I think your remark shows that there are times when certain opinions are more popular, and for those who have minority views, whether they are related to religion or other forms of thinking, it can be hard. And I think it's incumbent upon us to listen to the voices that are different from us, even ones that we think may be outdated, but to have an open mind and learn and listen. I think that's a really important point. It's easy to listen to people who agree with us. It's much harder to listen to people who disagree with us. Thank you for that comment. Sir.
Hello, my name is Alex Enkiewicz. I'm a mayor of 500,000 city in Ukraine, city of Mykolaiv. Before that, I was an IT entrepreneur. Moreover, my degree in university is artificial intelligence. So my question won't be about race or religion. It's more about open government. So first of all, one day I gave a lecture in university, and students asked me what is the main challenge on the mayor's position. And I said it's temptation. The everyday's temptation is the main problem of any kind of public servant. The temptation to take some money or to make any specific decision. So don't you think that open government is not about it's less about participation in decision making, but more about anti-corruption? First question.
Sir, that's it. One question only, so others have a chance. Thank you.
It's a second question from first. And the next stuff.
10 seconds, sir.
10 seconds. So any kind of software has three layers: the layer of presentation, the layer of business logic, and the layer of data. So don't you think that the main idea of such summits should be to create decisions and to share them for free to any country? To country that poor or to country that rich? We use Microsoft Windows, we use Apple Mac OS, but we don't use these tools, electronic tools, because world becomes digital. And we need to share the tools for free with those countries who can't take that and make it, the global thinking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Technology is a public good. So question on temptation, and shouldn't we be creating more public good technology that is useful for every country, including the poor countries? Any one of you want to take that?
I don't think those two issues are indivisible or separate. I think that part of open government is ensuring that people have a voice, they have an understanding of the information that they're seeing from government, and they have an ability to use and hold government to account, which then enables, hopefully anti-corruption measures as well. I think that those are very much issues that are linked in part and parcel. And then absolutely, I think horizontal cooperation between governments is fundamental, and just with regards to Ukraine, I mean, Canada has a very extensive bilateral cooperation agreement with Ukraine in terms of further democratization and sharing best practices. And before I was Minister of Democratic Institutions, I was the Parliamentary Secretary for International Development. And I don't think it's just a one-way path. I mean, one of the things about developing countries or countries on the path to democracy is that in many ways they're leapfrogging more established democracies, and we have a lot to learn in terms of best practices and policies that we can apply in Canada or in other developed countries. And so I think this is a very important dialogue that happens in a two-way manner.
I think a fair critique that could be made of our panel here is that we're having a very important conversation, but really we are kind of skimming the surface. We are above the heads of real people's lives struggling where they need action, right? Does anybody want to take that question? How can we get closer in terms of the things we're talking about to action that will actually make a difference in people's lives? What's the key so that we don't end up 5 years from now having more conversations, more documents, more ideas, but things are not changing on the ground? Any reflections on that?
So I always have a reflection.
Okay.
I think that part of it is first of all, we're always going to be having conversations because we're never going to fully solve the problem. But I think part of it is addressing some of the power asymmetries that are present in the digital world right now and ensuring that those voices are heard. I've been reflecting a lot on the situation in Venezuela in that social media and digital participation enables people who are being repressed and targeted by government to have a platform with the world. And so how do we ensure that that continues and that that carries on and that those very real abuses can be documented and shared in a way that's flat and horizontal? And that was the promise of social media. Remember, that was the promise. And I think that's where we want to get. Because how can we harness what is an immense and powerful tool for good and to continue on that really important journey of continuing to fight for human rights, continuing to fight for democracy, and sharing those with those items and issues with the world so that the world can put pressure on some of those regimes. And I think that actually that is happening in Venezuela. I mean, Canada is leading the Lima Group and really exerting a lot of pressure on the example of Venezuela. But that's what we need to continue to work on. It's about, again, being rooted in those principles, in those values, to be able to fully exercise them.
Thank you. The conversation needs to continue. Conversation is not anti-action, it's enabling of action. It's also about how do we reclaim the democratic potential of social media and put it in place so that it truly is this democratic space. We are almost at time. What I want us to do now, all of us, the panel as well as the audience, is to just quietly reflect. If you feel comfortable closing your eyes, do so for 30 seconds and say, if there is one person who should be in this conversation now, who you wish was on this stage bringing her or his perspective, who would that person be and why? So just take a few seconds to reflect on that.
My 14-month-old son. And the reason is because we are talking about the normative framework that will govern the world he grows into and the rights that he should be entitled to, and to make sure that we're protecting his ability to participate in democracy and those of the future generation. Thank
you. Please join me in giving a hand to Christophe and Hala and Ben and Karina for their participation. Thank you very much. So this panel is now done, and we have one last speaker, a really important speaker, to join us. Right now, may I invite Yamayari who is the minister from the government of Afghanistan, to speak to us and share insights on how do you do open government in a difficult place like Afghanistan. Minister, please, welcome.